Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Success Your Why Powers Your How. My name is Richard Kaufman and I am known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, today we're going to have a fun episode and we're going to delve into something that I know zero, zilch, nada about. But first of all, I want to thank our sponsor. We got a brand new sponsor, veteran owned Marine Corps veteran, has a company called Simmer Fi, and a homemade they make homemade condiments, they make homemade barbecues, honeys, mayonnaise, ketchup, all that good stuff, and they make some hot fiery sauces. So definitely check them out. It's called Simmer, Simmer Fi. Check them out. They're great people. If you support veteran-owned businesses, definitely check out Simmerfi. Hey guys, this is going to be, like I said, a great episode with my friend Nick Page, and we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency, which I know jack about. So, welcome to the show, my brother. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, sir. Thank you so much for having me. And that totally sets the tone for it because I was like, oh, what if he's like a Bitcoin expert and I'm about to be blown out of the water. I'm gonna learn a thing or two.
No, I do not know jack, but if you're a friend of Lane, you're a friend of mine, and I'm glad you're coming on the show. But first of all, I want to know, where are you from? Where were you born? Where were you raised? And
Yeah,
what kind of little kid were you?
so I was born and raised in San Diego, California. Beautiful city. Great vacation spot, 70 degrees year round. I didn't come from the nicer side of San Diego per se, because when you have any kind of tourist born area, you're gonna have it's seedier parts. But yeah, born and raised there. As far as how I was as a child, I was definitely a weird kid. I mean, I'm still a weird adult, which I take pride
Welcome to the club. We're all weird.
in. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I moved around a lot growing up. I didn't have the easiest upbringing. It wasn't the hardest by any sense, but it was definitely it helped mold me into who I am today.
Now, were you a good student?
Oh, I was an awful student. I was a very artistic child, so I would turn in my homework with little drawings on the side. I would make my own little like stick figure comics. I would say I was about a C student pretty much all the way through, but I didn't have too much motivation to do well in school. I went to public schools, and my grades didn't necessarily matter as far as my home life went. So it was more I was there for a social time, and that was actually really reflected all the way up until I was in high school.
So now,
Uh,
in high school, were you an athlete? Were you in getting better at school at this time, or just the status quo?
just kind of the status quo. And as far as an athlete goes, at the time I was far from it. Like I played badminton, but that was probably about as physical as it got. Now I wasn't in bad shape by any means, but I was just never really interested by sports growing up.
All right, now you got to let me know because I've interviewed hundreds of people on the show, hundreds of veterans, and I love to hear their recruiting stories because everybody has a story and everyone is different. So tell me about your recruiting story.
So I had known that I was always going to go into the military, and I feel like subconsciously that's kind of what helped me. Like, oh, I don't need to be an A student. I don't need to get a scholarship. I'm just going to go join the army or go join the Marines. My stepfather's father was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. Fought in Iwo Jima, like fought in the Korean War. Hardcore dude. Told me all kinds of stuff growing up, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. Um, so I was inspired by the military. I always loved like military films. I was 10 years old watching Saving Private Ryan and uh, Starship Troopers, all this jazz. And when I hit about, let's see, when I went into high school, I did JROTC, and I found that really focused me. That helped center me. I love the drill. I love the uniform. I loved, dress right dress, first aid, land nav, all that. And then that kind of naturally leads you into a recruiting environment. And I was actually approached by an Army recruiter, um, who it was me and actually my two best friends at the time. We were all like, "Oh, we're gonna all join up together. This is gonna be awesome." And for a while, it was. I enlisted actually while I was still in high school. Pretty much a week after 17, I started the paperwork for my enlistment. Took my ASVAB, went to MEPS.
How'd you score on your ASVAB?
I did all right. I think overall I was like a 79. I did really well in like the GT, the general tech score that helps you pick which jobs you want. And at the time I thought I wanted to get into counterintelligence, but there were other options provided to me because I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have any kind of continued education. So they were pretty much like, all right, well, you want to do this, but here are a couple more options. And one of them was combat engineer. I was like, okay, that's interesting. What does a combat engineer do? And they're like, oh, well, you'll be doing some like light construction, some demolition, back in the more major engagements, they were on the front lines, blowing through obstacles. But now it's more or less, kind of the construction wing of the Army. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then I actually, due to my poor grades at the time, I had to go into a public program where I went to a separate school where I could focus on going to school online and I could finish courses at my own pace. And I blew through all the required credits I needed. And from that point, they were like, all right, you got your diploma. You're going to be an engineer. Let's send you to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Fort Lost in the Woods, Missouri.
Fort Lost in the Woods. And I'll tell you, it was a culture shock because I grew up in San Diego. It was 70 degrees year round, never rained, never snowed. The coldest it ever got was maybe 54 degrees. And they were like, don't go outside. It's a big freeze, to being in Missouri in the winter for my 17-week course. It was definitely a changing experience.
So now where was your first duty station?
So after you graduate, basic and AIT, they give you kind of a list of places where you can pick where you want to go.
The dream sheet.
I was like, yeah, the dream sheet. I was like, I want to go to Japan. I want to go to Alaska. You know what? I would love to go to Germany. And they're like, great, we're going to send you to Fort Hood, Texas. Like,
spent 2.5 years there. I think I remember I was there.
The great place. I mean, we always joked about it as kind of like it's an elephant graveyard. It's where Army careers go to die, because it's hard to get out of. But I was sent to Fort Hood. I was one of two soldiers from my entire basic training cycle to go. Everyone else pretty much went to Fort Carson, and so I was at Fort Hood with 1st Cav, 4th Brigade, 4th Special Troops Battalion, Long Knife, which has actually been dissolved. I want to say they changed their brigade structure.
I hated having to run around your tower, by the way. Just throwing that out. For being from 2nd Armored Division, I hated running around your tower.
Oh, yeah. It was almost like the base was split in two.
Yeah. Now, did you get deployed at all?
I did. Pretty much, I want to say 10 months after I got to my new unit, we had orders to go to Iraq, to northern Iraq, to participate in the final few months of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then the transition into Operation New Dawn.
All right. So now how many years did you do in the military?
I only did 4.
Okay. Now, obviously we don't tell war stories here because that's not what I do. Because, the only war I ever had was between my ears. So now when you came back and did you notice anything was off at all, or did you come back? All right, no problems.
Oh, no, absolutely. Because I had one of the more interesting experiences of being deployed. Sorry, excuse me. Being deployed and also having access to social media. Like, yes, we did rewire the Iraqi police telecommunication system, so we would have internet mainly to play Call of Duty with each other, but we also had access to Facebook. Now, I turned 18 in basic training and I turned 19 in Iraq. So having so much exposure to what other people my age were doing at the time was really kind of eye-opening. And it kind of distanced myself a little bit from my peers in the civilian sector. And coming back was not an easy experience. I mean, I know you say you don't tell war stories by any means, and it terribly wasn't that rough of a deployment at least from what I thought at the time. I grew up watching, war movies and stuff on TV, so I had a completely different experience about what I thought I was going to get into. But it's more of the overall weight that comes with those experiences
Yeah,
that was difficult to deal with when I came back.
and like I said, I talked to a lot of people on here, and I've been doing it for now a couple of years. We're up to like episode 230 or something stupid like that. And the biggest problems when I talk to a lot of guys and girls are, when you get home and you finally get out, you kind of lose, like when we're in and we're in our own squad. There were times that where we would sit in the middle of the desert eating our lunches and dinners on top of a Humvee, just smoking and joking. And when you get out, you miss those times because even though we were all in a team, we became like family because we had to become family, and we got to know each and every person and their life story. And when we get out, like my friend Nick Valentine says, as soon as you step off Fort Hood or whatever base you're at, the military does not give a shit about you anymore. Your phone stops ringing. So all of a sudden, you lose your friends and you lose the camaraderie, and then you also don't have a mission anymore.
Absolutely, like you say, we're so used to receiving that check on the 1st and the 15th. Having our day set out for us, and
episodes, huh?
Yeah, wow. It was difficult to, especially being at the ages I was, because I ETS when I was 21. I made that decision more or less because when we were doing engineer stuff, it was great. When my leadership was, supporting us and we were doing training and getting ready, it was great. But as the brigade was transitioning, we found ourselves, we'd do PT, we'd get up, eat breakfast, and then we go on a detail. And I'm mowing lawns and I'm picking up cigarette butts and I'm standing around the motor pool. And it just wasn't the experience that I was looking for.
So,
and
as you talk about that, like I was the best field soldier there ever was. Get me out in the field, let me get dirty, let me get nasty, let me have some fun, but put me in the rear with the gear, put me, in garrison, and I was the worst soldier ever. Because I would be the guy like you would be like, why are we cutting grass? Do I look like a landscaper to you? Or why can't we walk on the grass, Sergeant Major? So I was the guy that would be always locked up and doing push-ups just for being stupid, because I'm like, I don't understand. You teach me to be a tanker. Let me do tanker stuff.
Right. I completely relate with you 100%. Like I was the youngest specialist in my brigade because I had that JROTC in high school. I entered in as an E3. And I still had a couple months before I even went to basic where that time was stacking up. So I want to say it was October of 2010. I was promoted to E4 at 18, which was like unheard of.
Yeah, you were
at the time. So like, yeah, real young. And that also wasn't the easiest experience. Being the youngest guy, I'm surrounded by all these rough and tumble. Oh, this is my 5th deployment, 6th deployment, combat engineer, door kicking type, rough and tumble dudes. And then there's here, me like, hey guys.
And a lot of people don't realize, they think, you join the military, but when you have to sign that paperwork, and because, when we get deployed, we got to do all our paperwork, and you have to sign the power of attorney over to somebody. You're signing your life insurance over to somebody else. It's a total, and I don't like to curse on here, but I apologize to my listeners, but it's a total mind fuck. And when you're 18, 17, 18 years old, it changes your whole life perspective, and especially you guys that were deployed, you guys are, and then, you come back home and the civilians do not understand you, but then, like you said, you're 21 years old, you're a young buck, and now all you've known is war. And then you get out into the civilian world and they don't understand, like when we were in the military, there was no 8 to 5 or 9 to 5.
Right.
We trained until the mission was complete. And it's hard when you get out to, getting an office job and be like, all right, so we got more to do, but you guys are clocking out at 4 o'clock. What is, yeah, it's hard to understand. So take us into that, hitting the streets and getting it back into civilian life and getting a job. What was that, having that
Oh,
mindset change?
yeah, absolutely. And especially being in a combat arms job, like having your dog tag on your boot because that's what they're going to find if you're pink mist in the wind during a roadside excursion. And jumping from that to like retail was just really difficult. I mean, I ETS'd and I didn't do as much work as I should have and almost kind of recessed back to where I was at in my civilian schooling. Like there are programs out there, but it's not as readily available as they lead you to believe. Um, so as I had ETS at 21, my mom had recently been divorced and she moved to Austin with my half brother. I do have two brothers. The youngest closest to me is 14 years in age older. So I didn't see him too much. I didn't have too much of a civilian family. I didn't have too much civilian friends. And like you had mentioned earlier, once you get your packet and you're out the door and you're off the gate for the first time, and they just kind of cut you loose.
Yeah, you're
They're like, all right,
swinging.
yeah,
You're alone. And like when I got out the first time, I was 20 years old, and the 21-year-olds that I was meeting, they're still playing video games home with mom, and you just came back from a 3 or 4 year deployment, and you're like, all right, our mindsets are not the same whatsoever.
absolutely. And that's actually why I didn't go back to San Diego, because looking at the bigger picture and seeing what everyone else I grew up with was still doing is they were still living with their parents. They were still working menial jobs. They weren't moving forward at all. And we got to be mission focused and, drive on. So once I ETS'd, I decided to move to Austin with my mother and my brother, and I ended up getting my own apartment. And it was a difficult transition. Like I did kind of the stereotypical thing that a lot of younger guys do when they get out. Like I grew my hair long and got into the culture and did all the stuff that I haven't been able to do for the last 4 years. But eventually the party's over, and you got to kind of focus on where you're going to go with your life.
So what kind of, now hopefully, you've over the years you've gotten some help with the stuff you were struggling with. So what kind of job did you take? What kind of career did you have? Because like I had a hard time. There's not many civilian jobs that are looking for tank commanders. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I talk to people, and when they're putting their resume together, they put all this stuff, military acronyms and everything, and the people looking at them, their eyes glass over, and they just say next, because they don't understand, how to put your military experience properly on a resume. So how was
Yeah.
it work for you?
I definitely can relate to that 100%. Like it's hard to go from finding roadside bombs and creating obstacles for enemies and, dealing with direct engagements. And this is what you do if you encounter a minefield. And I've done this, 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 and this. And they're like, sir, this is a Walgreens. How's your customer service? So the work that I kind of leaned into initially was, just menial jobs, worked at gas stations, did some warehouse gigs, things like that. And I just was getting by. But it wasn't until I was working for a cable company in North Austin, which it was a contracting company that was dissolved by an additional contract company. And they already had a warehouse guy. So they didn't need Nick anymore. And I'm like, well, I've still got bills to pay. So I started applying for everything I could. And finally, there's this Italian place in North Austin that was like, well, we don't have much going on, but I could really use a dishwasher for Friday night. We'll pay you in cash, $10 an hour. And I was like, what? Honestly, I'll take it. And that was my first experience in the restaurant industry. And that was just kind of the start of a passion of mine. So I was washing dishes, doing what I had to do, working my, long shift. And then the salad guy rage quit. He's like, I can't do this anymore. He left. And they're like, all right, dishwasher, Nick, you're on salads. I'm like, all right. And the guy I was working for at the time, he was like a real hardcore Gordon Ramsay type dude. His name was Albert. Loved him to death. And over the next year, I worked my way up from salads to prep to, working the line to then eventually running the line. And after a while, I was in it again. I had that energy. We had tickets across the window. I've got to slice this. I've got to cut that. I'm managing 8 different dudes. We've got 60 people in the dining room and nobody's got an appetizer out yet. Let's go, go, go. And it was just really exciting. And I found that food was a really good outlet for what I was experiencing at the time, which I didn't know that I had PTSD. I had anxiety. I was suffering with all forms of depression.
Now,
And
I wanted to say, first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming on today, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. And it's a pleasure getting to know you. And like I said, any friend of Lane is definitely a friend of mine. Now, I've talked to, like last week, I talked to a Navy SEAL commander. He had over 19, combat deployments. And we talk, there's something about us, I can say, military, is we have that need for excitement. Even if you've been in war, there's a certain rush. Like for me, there was something about sending a round downrange. It was the ultimate. So how did you, before you found the food, how did you fulfill that rush? If you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Honestly, I wasn't treating myself well, wasn't treating my body well. I would definitely say that those couple years would have been the years that I had struggled with substance abuse and unhealthy outlets. Things that I thought were bringing me joy when really I just needed a new mission to go to. And that same energy that I got from working in those kitchens, I transferred eventually to the sales field. Now, I'll kind of make it brief because I don't want to have like your 2-hour show about my life,
Yeah, but people, like when I have people on the show, they call me the veteran Oprah because, I want to get to know the people, the person behind the man that, because if you tell your story, people can relate to your story and they'll be able to understand more of the cryptocurrency because they're going to find out your why. So now, now you're working in kitchens, you're all hopped up. You got 8 guys working for you. So what happened?
Working in kitchens, everything's great. Everything was perfect. Had I just settled there, I'd be all right. But I've got to be moving forward. I've always had a drive, a mission. I want more. Like only in my recent years have I become humble, but I've always been hungry, if that makes sense. So I had a old buddy of mine I deployed with who reached out to me, popped out of nowhere, stopped at my restaurant, ordered the rigatoni, loved it. And he was like, you know what, Nick? I was going by Paige at the time. I was still kind of in that mindset. He's like, in 3 months, I'm opening up a place in Houston. I want you to come down, run the place, design the menu, and bring us all success. And I was super, super stoked about it. And so I, in kind of a foolish move, I, quit my job, got everything set up. I had 3 months left on my lease, broke my lease, put everything I had in a U-Haul and drove down to Houston to open this place up. And initially it was awesome. It was great having that freedom, being able to create, but also not having the foundations of a business background, or kind of understanding more of the intricacies. And it was solely my pet project. And we did really well for a little bit. But unfortunately, when it comes to restaurants, you either make it in the first year or you fail.
And most restaurants, 60, 70% have a failure rate anyway.
Correct. You have the idea, you have the concept, you can have a great, idea, great food, but ultimately it didn't work out. And it was just kind of a perfect storm of events. We ended up being shut down by our local fire marshal due to the volume that we were producing of food, because we were very popular. Instagram was hot, Facebook was hot. We were the it spot. And then when the fire marshal came, they realized that your vent hood system that you have for your current kitchen is not adequate safety-wise for what you're doing and the volume you're doing. So you need to shut down your kitchen until you get a new vent hood system.
So obviously you didn't get the new vent hood system.
Well, we attempted to get the new vet hood system, and right when we started rolling through with the new vet hood system, our main investor had a child at the time, and there were some difficulties in childbirth, which unfortunately, the child's absolutely okay now, but caused a diversion of our main funding to the medical expenses, and we couldn't keep our heads afloat because we were shut down for about 3 months, and we just couldn't get that initial momentum again. So the place closed.
So what did
And
you do? What was your next step?
well, at this point, I had a house, I had car, and money was great, and then the money just stopped. And that's when I had to do a lot of self reflection.
It's a lot like
And
COVID, you know?
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine what these small business owners are going through right now, and not having that support network. But for all intents and purposes, the money ran out. I didn't have a backup plan. I was 24, 25 at the time. Um, and I unfortunately found myself homeless for a little bit.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize, like I was homeless and now I have. Some people will never know the feeling of, being homeless and from a height of success. Like I was talking to a guy yesterday, and his episode will be released in a while. He was a professional football player for over 15 years, and when he retired, the money ran out, and he was a janitor, trying to make ends meet. And then he came back, and now he's crushing it again. But nobody knows that feeling when you're that low, and there's nowhere to go but up. So when you were, after you were homeless, how did you get your, pick up your bootstraps? How did you start to get back on the feet again, and finally becoming the man that you are today?
So we're always going to Charlie Mike. Their defeat isn't an option, no matter how bad things get. But also at the same time, you can't reach out to certain people, even your former military comrades and friends and family, and be like, look, I did this, and now this is where I am, and now I need help. Can I crash on your couch for a little bit? Like that, overcoming that pride was really difficult. And I actually asked my girlfriend at the time, like, hey, hun, this is what's going on. Can I come stay with you? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I had never visited her house before, but she was still living with her parents, and it's in a more rural suburb of Houston, a prominently Hispanic community. And her parents had an acre of land, and they had a little house that her father built. From hardworking construction guy, came from Guatemala to, build the American dream. Her mom was from El Salvador. Nobody spoke a lick of English, but they let me move in. They let me stay. And from there, and I was just so blessed to have that connection, and so blessed to have my partner help me out with that, because ultimately that's what helped lead me to where I am today, was the kindness of other people. And that at the time was kind of a foreign concept.
And it's pretty amazing. Like I considered, I'm a blessed man, that whenever I was at my lowest, there was always somebody there to stand in the gap for me. And that's something that I want to be for others. So now, what were you doing? What kind of sales job did you take? Because, a lot of people think, sales is easy, but no, there's a whole psychology behind successful sales. So how is that, having to learn the sales mindset?
Absolutely. And it was a completely left wing transition, especially after having this background in food, to jump into sales. And I wasn't just, selling cars or selling houses. I was selling ballistic vests to law enforcement agencies and different equipment. It's a very niche, but also the market was primed to have somebody like me who has experience in ballistics and body armor. This was like, all right, I've been waiting for this. Jumped into it, found a good company. They provided me the stability I needed to get back on my feet, which was great. And I found that I was kind of inherently good at sales. And I blame it on my genetics. My grandfather was a used car salesman, and my father was a used car salesman. So naturally, I've got the gift of gab, as they say. And it was exciting to engage with people one-on-one, engage with municipal different agencies, from Border Patrol to local police departments to federal agencies to selling boots to the FBI. every day was really exciting, but the environment I was in wasn't allowing for some growth. And that's kind of what led to a mental turning point for me.
Okay. Now, we're going to start talking about cryptocurrency in a little bit, but, I can understand where you get to a point and you're like, okay, now what? I don't want to be sitting behind this counter 10 years from now doing the same exact thing. So what was your next foray or next step in
my moment happened when it was back in 2017. We had just had the Dallas shooting,
yep.
in which a few officers were injured and killed. The state released a series of grants to allow for level 4 ballistic material to be carried in every single police vehicle, because what they have now is only pretty much rated for handgun rounds and small calibers. The logic is that you could throw this vest on over your existing vest and you're ready to face off an opponent who has that 7.62, who has that 5.56, and bring up to the next level of protection. So I helped facilitate a deal that resulted in about $100,000. And my boss came up and said, you know what, Nick, this is amazing. We've loved having you. Congratulations so much. Here's a $25 gift card to Chili's. And I was like, I mean, that's cool and all, but my raise was denied the other week. And this is just one of many contracts that we're helping set up. And that kind of set in motion I need to do something lateral. I need to get away from the norm, because I'm not going to get to where I want to be serving these other people. If that makes sense.
You made a decision. Now, I was just talking to a gentleman today. He was talking about something about the same lines. They were having a meeting, and the CEO said, thank you guys so much. We did $365 million this quarter. And the guy stood up and said, well, then how come we're not allowed to have a cost of living raise? And he quit right there on the spot. He's like, so wait a minute, you guys just made $365 million and you can't even offer a cost of living raise? I'm out of here. So pretty much you had one of those, they call it pucker factor. You had one of those moments where you're like, all right, it's a wrap. I'm done.
I had the pucker factor. I'm selling nice things to nice people, and at some point I need to do nice things for myself. So I left that job. I got into lumber and building materials, very stable industry, especially even through all this COVID stuff that's going on. There's more construction than ever. And it was a new field, but I learned it, adapted. I do really well at it, but I still, like I said, I'm hungry, but I'm humble. I wanted more. And that's what led me to digital assets.
All right. So I'm going to, because one thing about me, I'm not a bullshit artist. I'll tell you the truth, and if we're going to be friends, then I always have to be honest. I was kind of hesitant to even talk to you when I knew you were in digital currency, because, pardon my French, every person that I've met, because I'm big on LinkedIn, and I'm constantly 100 a day getting emails and stuff like that about crypto, and it's kind of like, I want to excuse my language. It's kind of like somebody else, they'll request me, and then they'll send an email. Not even a minute later, I need you to buy me this Bitcoin or whatever. It's like, bro or female, date me before you marry me. You know what I'm saying? and unfortunately, from the people that I've met, there must be something with the teaching or something, that a lot of them are getting bad names for doing that. But I see that you do things differently. So how do you do things differently than other people do? Because you seem like such a great person, and you're willing to help and come on and teach me about something. So can you tell us the difference between you and every other Bitcoin person out there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're not wrong, sir. Like, what I would say 99.9% of these guys, like, they start with some kind of message, and then next thing you know, you're going to see them in a YouTube ad, and they're talking about, this is my Lamborghini. But you know what I love more than my Lamborghini? Knowledge. I read a book a day. Subscribe to my channel. I'll teach you how to get rich on cryptocurrency. Like I'm not about that. What I'm here for is offering a altruistic platform in which other people can learn, because this is a new asset. There's so many scams. It's risky. It's dangerous. It's high volume. But if you can carve yourself out just a little portion of what's going on, this is the first new asset class since stocks and bonds. And
I want you to talk to me like you're talking to Homer Simpson, because that's pretty much what I am. I know a lot of things, but I know zip, zero, zilch, nada about this. So can you break it down Barney style and tell us what this new currency is?
All right, absolutely, and that's what I love to do, is to help introduce new people and go through some of the hurdles that I had to put hours and hours and hours and weeks of research in. All right, so I'm not going to get too much into the technology side of Bitcoin, because that would be that would be a whole different podcast.
Just the basics, so we know what you're talking about.
All right, 2008, new internet money was created. This new internet money had no value, but what it was going to try to do is eliminate the bank, or bank the unbankless. It was at the height of the 2008 recession, when there was a lot of uncertainty going on in financial markets. And it was created by a mysterious guy named Satoshi Nakamoto, he's a total Robin Hood figure. It's not a real name. It's not a real person. It could be a group of people for all we know. But he created an algorithm, like a complex ledger, that would move forward bit by bit, completely transparently, referred to as the blockchain. And once again, I'm not going to go too much into that, but if we were to fast forward to where we're at now, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency has transitioned from something that libertarians use to battle against the government to now we're seeing it in our everyday lives. It's value, it's money, it's gold and it's silver, but it's not something that you can physically hold.
Okay.
So
I'm listening. Because I got a mind where, when somebody's talking, I just shut my eyes and I'm totally envisioning what you're talking about. So go ahead. Thank you so much.
So the main difference between this and your money is, if we look at what is value is, I do something for you, you give me something that has some form of value. It takes it back to, wampum and shells and all that, which then we transitioned to gold, and everything was gold, but we realized we can't just carry around bricks of gold. And I want to buy a sandwich. Let me use my potato peeler to shave off a slice of it. All right, there you go. I've paid for this. So we moved to centralized banks, and they transitioned to, all right, you no longer have to carry around your bars of gold. We're going to issue a series of notes. You give us one gold bar, we give you $1,000. That is the equal amount for this gold bar. You can hand them out, and we'll divvy up the gold as needed.
And then they took us off the gold standard.
They did, because at that point, we switched from paying with something to paying through someone, which leads us to our centralized banks. And with, like you said, the absolution of the gold standard, our money is not backed by anything. It is a series of receipts based on what the government says that we have.
And they just keep on printing it and printing more.
They just more and more and more. So now there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. There can never be any more. That's the absolution of that algorithm. And more is mined from that initial 21 million, putting more into circulation as it's moved forward. But with it being a completely see-through ledger, there's no bank. There's nobody that has to approve your transactions. There's nobody that has to, debit and credit and send things here and send things there. You are in 100% complete control of your money.
So it's kind of like Venmo, to where the banks have no clue what you're doing. It's just you're doing it between people.
Venmo, in a sense, yes. If you were your own bank, you don't have to get any form of third party involved in it. So that's what brings it decentralized. There's no central bank. There's no authority. The blockchain itself is immutable. It cannot be replicated. It cannot be hacked. And that's because it can be viewed by everyone and is run internationally.
But who owns?
There is no way.
The 21 million Bitcoins?
As it's gone into fruition, we now all do. When you purchase one Bitcoin, you have one of those 21 million, and you've paid US dollars for that one Bitcoin, thus putting money into the market, so increasing the overall value.
Stocks that you can actually spend. You're buying a stock in this, which is a gold, which is a Bitcoin, which you can actually spend.
Correct. We hate the term stocks when referred to this, and that's why we use the terminology of coins and of digital assets, and why we're moving away from the labeling of cryptocurrency. Because when you think of cryptocurrency, you think of a guy in an overcoat in an alley saying like, "Hey kid, you want to buy some Bitcoin? You can buy all kinds of stuff with it." But a digital asset is the next step going forward.
Now, because now since I knew we were going to start talking, I just started, because like sometimes when you buy a brand new car, you see that new car everywhere. So once we started, I knew we were going to start talking. Now I start hearing, Bitcoin, every cryptocurrency everywhere. And I hear, the value is going up. So how does a person like, yourself or myself, how do we go about buying cryptocurrency?
Well, what I tell everyone is you wait a week. You might listen to this podcast and be like, "Oh, this sounds awesome. I'm on the forefront of it. I'm going to buy as much as I can now," without realizing that, hey, I'm actually buying at the top. And these markets are not the stock markets. They're extremely volatile. There's a lot of ups, a lot of downs. It's completely normal to see your entire portfolio go down 20% overnight or go down 40% overnight, but then correct in the next following week. And that's the biggest risk on how people lose money. But if you want to get into this, I've sent you a link for an exchange called Coinbase. And Coinbase, it's based in America. You register with it. You'll sign up, and it'll give you access to, if you wanted to use a fiat on-ramp like US dollars in order to get some of these cryptocurrencies, you can. You don't have to have 3 computers and be staring at charts all day. It's something you can do like, oh, I'm at the gas station. Let me check the price of Bitcoin. Oh, it's down. You know what? I'm going to buy another 10. But also outside of stocks, you don't have to buy the whole thing. You can take $5 and you can buy $5 worth of Bitcoin because it breaks down almost how a dollar does cents. And over a period of time, you can accumulate as much as you'd like.
Okay, so now how do I mean, like I said, I'm a simple guy. I'm old school. Just getting an iPhone is a big thing for me. So how do I buy a sandwich with Bitcoin? How do I go wash my car with Bitcoin?
So while we,
do you have a credit card or a debit card do you use?
You're not wrong, but I'll let you know we're not there yet. You can, if a vendor offers Bitcoin as a form of payment, and there's a lot of places that do, especially online. I mean, like you said, you buy a new car and you start seeing it everywhere. We got Elon Musk talking about, Gene Simmons from KISS is tweeting about Bitcoin. There's Super Bowl commercials.
He just bought a $300 million worth of a certain asset.
Yeah, the hype is real.
All right, so now what are some of, because I'm always the positive guy. Everything in this world obviously has the negatives, and you've already talked about the volatility and all that. But what are the positives that you see coming up in the next 5 to 10 years with these kind of currencies?
So first and foremost, it's changing the way that finance is happening because it's taking the bank out of the equation. And if I could just let me just circle back now really quick to, with it being popular, everyone is buying things on Robinhood and on Webull and all these trading apps, because now after the whole GameStop, Wall Street's bets thing, everybody's a trader. Everybody has something. So you'll see guys at the bar, guys at the club, guys in the street talking about, oh, I bought this stock, and you can purchase crypto on these exchanges. But if I can tell you a story, I had a coworker of mine who, I've been talking about crypto for, going on 3 years now, and everybody thought I was crazy about the whole thing. This isn't going anywhere. After the whole Wall Street bets and the Dogecoin pump that happened, in which Elon Musk took a coin that has no value, no use case, it's literally a meme in monetized format, and tweeted about it, pumping it from 0.008 to 0.05 cents. Everybody got into it. So my coworker comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Nick, I'm on Robinhood and I finally bought cryptocurrency. I bought, $5 of Dogecoin." And I say, "All right, cool. I will give you 100 US dollars for your $5 of Dogecoin." He's like, "Oh, that's awesome. How do you send it to me?" I said, "Well, go ahead, send it. Pull up your wallet. I got $100 right here. Give me your $5 worth of Dogecoin and I will give you $100 cash." And he couldn't. Because if you don't own your crypto, if you don't own your keys, if you don't have it in your own wallet, in your own pocket, on your own browser, you don't technically own it. So there's all kinds of people coming into this space that are just absolutely misinformed about what's going on, and it's going to cause a lot of confusion.
I was in the health and fitness industry for over 32 years, and I've seen it come and go. Like when CBD first hit the market, everybody wanted it. And then everybody put out product, and there's some great product, and there's some really, really shitty products out. I'm sure the same thing is going to happen with this kind of currency. So how do you safeguard against that? And how do you know? Like are there certain websites you can go to find out which is better? Which is, because sometimes the biggest name is not the best product. You know what I'm saying? So like,
oh, absolutely,
but it may not be the best. So how do you figure out, is there a website you go to start doing some research? Or is that what
yes, that's I do assist with research. I will never tell you what to buy because I am not a financial advisor. I can't foresee the future. I can't control the markets. I'm not going to say, "Hey, Rich, buy XRP today. It's going to the moon tomorrow. You need to put everything you've got in it," because that's not going to happen. That's not how that works. But there's a lot of projects in this space that do have a real world use case. And if I can circle back to what CEO of Ripple, another American cryptocurrency organization, what he says, and he always asks questions when he's being interviewed. So, Richard, you want to send $10,000 to England right now. How do you do it?
Of course, it's you just have to electronically send it.
Well, you can electronically send it, but the bank has to. It's 2 a.m. You need to get 10,000 to England right now. The bank has to verify it. They have to use their archaic system from the 70s to verify that the bank that you're sending it to can receive it. And this whole wire transfer process can take 3 to 5 days.
And can be expensive.
And it can be expensive. What if I told you that you can send me a QR code or a 16-digit code, and I can literally send you funds in less than 10 seconds for no fees?
Then that would be very, very interesting. But, now, because I'm the guy that always looks at things half full, half empty, then, of course, you're going to have your haters that are going to try to shut that down, which are the big banking systems, because then they're not.
Correct.
They're not getting their money out of it. Like if you go to try to send money the old school ways, going to, I forget what they were called, where you would send money and they charge you like $10 for a transfer fee.
It's like Western Union or MoneyGram.
So, you're going to have your haters are going to be like, hey, and that was the question I was going to get to is, how do you get people like me or older than me say, they'll say, well, I just do my money the way I've always done it, and knowing that what is there's a new system coming on the way. So how do you talk to people like you're very you're very well spoken, you're very knowledgeable to me. So how is it, when you're talking to people and they're like, that cryptocurrency, that's for the young folk. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're the ambassador to your generation in regards to this is Jim Cramer from Mad Money. And he's talking about it. The word is it's on Yahoo Finance. It's out there. This is no longer, like I said, this isn't a bunch of libertarians in their bunkers waiting for the government to collapse so they can still have their digital gold and silver. This is becoming, and we are still so early on in all this. It's only going to advance from here. Now, I understand coming from a generation that likes to hold their money, physically have it. And there's always that argument, well, what if the internet goes down? What if there's an EMP from China? I say, if that happens, we have much bigger issues to worry about than our digital currency. But you have to look at, we're now at the point where bigger banks are getting into this. In the next 8 months, Bank of America is going to allow a crypto wallet. In the next 2 years, the United States might roll out a CBDC, or a centralized bank digital currency, a digital US dollar built on the blockchain, on the network. And when it comes to Bitcoin, I don't own very much Bitcoin. I have some in my portfolio. I think it's good to have, but
Now,
there's so many new
that was
projects
going to
out
be,
there that are helping move this
like I said,
forward.
I was talking to a gentleman today, and I told him my story that I went to go buy a Dodge a couple of years ago. I sat down with the salesperson. He showed me everything, and then I told him to pull out his keys. And he pulled out his keys, and he was driving the Chevy. So I told him, I was like, go get somebody else because I'm not going to buy anything from you. And he asked me why. I said, because if you don't believe in your own product, why am I going to believe in your product? Why am I going to drive a Dodge, buy a Dodge from you if you're driving a Chevy? So
Absolutely.
What do you buy, and why do you buy it?
So, if I could speak about just a couple projects that I'm excited about right now, and once again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not recommending people go and dump, a quarter of your net worth into this. But personally, there's one called VeChain, or VET, that I'm really excited about. What it does is it connects a QR code to a physical item to the blockchain to trace authenticity. So this is completely different than what we were talking about in regards to Bitcoin, a while back. What this does is this helps combat the counterfeit markets that we see in China, that we see in, if you go and you buy a pair of Nikes, you can soon buy a pair of Nikes that has a QR code that if you scan it, it will verify that this is a pair of Nikes, not this is a knockoff from Thailand. And this particular coin you can get for less than 5 cents.
Okay. So now, if a person like myself or anybody else is interested in getting in touch with you, how do we find you? How do we get in touch with you? How can we just sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about this new currency?
So absolutely, and I will admit I'm very new into the social aspect of this, into the entrepreneur community. So I don't have, all the headshots or the portfolios. I don't have the YouTube ads. If you want to talk to me about something, if you want me to offer you my opinion, my knowledge, the best place to reach me is at npage, N is in November, PAGE, professional at gmail.com. Or alternatively, we have a Facebook group that is currently veteran focused. We're just about to break through 1,000 members, where people can come and ask their questions without being judged, without somebody trying to make a buck on them, without, give me $100 and I'll tell you exactly what coins to buy or anything like that. Like, it's completely altruistic. It's called the Crypto Vet Tribe. We're on Facebook. At this time, we only approve veterans. However, that also extends internationally. We got some Aussies, we got some English guys in there. I think we got a member from the New Zealand military, but just collectively bringing our knowledge together to help other people and help stop all, like you said, the con men, the scammers. With a new asset class, with opportunity, the snake oil salesmen are coming out. And we want to be a counter to that without expecting anything in return.
Okay, and I love that. Now, the last two questions I already asked you. How do we get in touch with you? The last question, if you know somebody that has extra money, and or you get somebody that say was working in the kitchens like you were, working hard, and they've given up on their dreams a little bit. They've given up. They used to have the drive, but they don't have the drive anymore. What is something they can, because in our busy world during COVID and all this, our world is crazy. And, if I ask somebody to do something in 7 days, they're pretty much never going to get to it. But if I ask them to do something in the next 24 hours, they're more than likely to do that. So if you know somebody that was in the same position you were at, having, certain mental issues, which, military does that sometimes, and just lost their drive or just lost their mission, what can they do in the next 24 hours to find a mission again?
So, and a great thing, because this whole digital currency thing has changed my life. And I tell people I'm not a millionaire. Like I don't drive the nicest cars. I don't have the nicest things, but my family never goes hungry. I have all the toys that I want. I don't have to worry about rent. Life is more comfortable. All this is just from research. And you know what? I'm not going to buy that $5 combo. I'm just going to get the dollar menu item, and I've got an extra $4. Let me put it into this. Let me see it build. And in the crypto space or the digital asset space, it's referred to as, and it's kind of a negative connotation, hopium, and it's very addictive. You're probably going to be a lot less depressed tomorrow if you wake up and you have an extra zero in your portfolio. So don't overinvest. Don't emotionally invest. Don't sell your car, get a second mortgage or anything. But if you have an extra 10 or $15, throw it into a coin that you've done some research on and you feel might do well. And that's where Coinbase comes in. I know I mentioned to you earlier, any of your listeners that go ahead and utilize that link, we're actually giving them $10 of free Bitcoin after they invest their first $100, which doesn't have to be up front. You could do it gradually over a period of time. I know it took me about a month, 2 months before I got, more into this, after I started seeing those gains and started realizing that this is almost a cheat code to our current system, if I could put it that way, where anybody, even the unbanked, you don't even have to have a Chase account. You could invest in something, you can hold something, and it could possibly one day change your life. And that helps drive you forward.
Well, brother, I want to say thank you. I appreciate you. So, guys, if you are interested in any of this new currency, definitely check my brother out. Come on, he's giving you a free. You spend $100, you get $10 in Bitcoin for free. Do it. I want to thank maybe since you've been in the food industry, just check out this company called Simmerfi. It's a veteran-owned company, and of course, they make hot sauces, they make ketchups and honeys. Definitely check them out, brother. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm a little bit backlogged, so it might be a little while till this comes out, but I'm going to promote it on all my social pages. And now that we've talked, I consider you a friend and a family member, and I just wanted to say welcome to the family.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me. You had me sold as soon as you said hot sauce. I'm a capsaicin kid for sure. So I'm going to be checking out Simmerfi. Once again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'd love to touch base with you going forward. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here.
All right. And, I tell everybody, everybody loves a comeback story. And today it's your day. All right, brother. Well, love you. Thank you so much. And I have a group that is just for this podcast. If you don't mind me adding you to it, I will.
Please do. Right, I look forward to it.
When you talk to Lane,
tell
him I said, hey.
Oh, heck yeah.
Hey, guys. I just want to let you know I absolutely love using Anchor. I have over 100 episodes with Anchor. And the great thing about it is I get to help a lot of different people. I've had over 1,000 listeners, and I've actually had people reach out to me telling me that it actually saved their life. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, if you have a passion, if you have a goal, definitely start podcasting using Anchor. It's probably the best thing I've done in my podcasting career.
Thank you for joining us today. Please hit subscribe and share. Please feel free to leave us a comment.